What's going on, YouTube? This is Aaron Trevini here, back with another wonderful episode of our Texas Real Estate and Construction podcast. We have a guest from outside the state of Texas, actually from Eastern Idaho. We are joined by Don Spafford from Happy Capital. How you doing today, Don?
Hey, Aaron, I'm doing great. Thanks.
Absolutely. So I know when we first connected, I thought it was so interesting. We've heard a lot of different parts of, real estate on the podcast. We've talked about, different investing strategies, construction, but no one's talked about RVs. It's interesting how this is kind of I don't want to say forgotten, but just kind of a less spoken about part of the business. So I'm excited for our show tonight.
Sure, thanks. Yeah, it's definitely like say the road less traveled in commercial real estate for sure. But it's definitely as many people may have heard elsewhere. It's a more of an untapped niche that is definitely up and coming now. It's relatively unknown for most people, but I think in the next couple of years you're going to see a lot more people doing
Absolutely. And road less travel, no pun intended, right?
it. Right, exactly.
All right, very good, Don. Well, for those of us who aren't too familiar with you, would you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. So as you mentioned, I'm in Eastern Idaho, so that's Idaho Falls, Idaho. If you're not familiar, we're about an hour and a half away from Yellowstone Park. So it's a great area for camping and outdoors life and stuff. Um, I grew up most of my life actually in Omaha, Nebraska, or around Omaha, and moved out here to Idaho about 7 years ago in 2015 to help care for my mother. Um, and then speaking of Texas, I do have good number of family in Texas, and I've been to Texas many times. Is one of the areas before we moved to Idaho where we had contemplated about moving to Texas, but again, family is what brought us here. Um, but so my educational background, in Omaha, kind of growing up in the shadow of Warren Buffett, I had always had an interest in investing, and I pursued a career path in that. I went to school and got my degrees in all around, finance and investment science and portfolio management. So my educational background, my career path was set to become like a financial advisor, managing portfolios and just investing in the stock market is what I had envisioned my future to be. But after the 2008 market crash happened, and there was a lot of these big corporations that have been around forever were going out of business and laying people off, I kind of saw that it was not as secure as I thought it was going to be. And so I was kind of scratching my head as, what can I do here? Um, and so I actually decided to go back to school and get an accounting degree, thinking maybe I'll go instead be a CPA and can still offer some, maybe financial investment advice in the same office as accounting services. Um, so I started doing that. I got the degree, started studying for the CPA as well. But at this point, I think we had three kids at that point, and so I was like, it was very difficult to set aside the time needed to really study and be prepared for those exams. Um, so I kind of just made the conscious decision that it really wasn't worth it to me. I didn't really need to have that, maybe the title or the income, whatever that would come from that, and and sacrifice my family in the meantime. So I kind of just decided just to stay where I was at, and hold on the job I had, be happy I had a job that was secure and could get by doing that. Later we had our fourth child came. Um, and after around that point though, my wife, so the three before the last one, had started, they were all going to school at this point. The youngest was started kindergarten. This is before my wife was pregnant with a fourth. And she was wanting to, she'd always been a stay-at-home mom. That was always our plan and what we wanted for our family. But now the kids are out of the house. She's like, well, she wanted to something to go do. But we wanted her job to be flexible and to not be, or what we do in the case when the kids are sick or during summer, we don't want to be paying for daycare or sending our kids to daycare or have her essentially work to pay for daycare. There's no sense in that. So that some reason the idea came up to become a realtor and become go into real estate in that sense. That so she could still make some decent income and hours be completely flexible and work as she wanted. So she decided she looked into it. She liked the idea mainly because she likes talking to people. She saw it as a way to be socially interactive and also help people. And so she became a realtor around 2010, 11 in Omaha, Nebraska at the time. And almost immediately she started working with investors as her first clients. And so that's kind of really what got me now more interested in wanting to learn how to invest in real estate. All my investment experience and education nowhere in those classes did we ever talk about real estate, And so I was curious about it because I'd always, I guess, as probably most people envision, you think of real estate investors, you're aside from those flipping shows on TV, you're thinking of you got to be ultra rich and wealthy. That's like the where the rich play. Yeah, an average person can't invest in real estate. So I had no clue or idea how to do it, and so but it got me motivated to want to learn how. So I started reading books and um, talking to some of her clients just and asking them questions and um, that's when I was made the guess the conscious decision that we need to start investing in real estate. Didn't have the resources to do it, or still even the really knowledge on how to do it, but I wanted to learn. We this was around 2013, 14, which turned out at the same point is where we decided we needed to move to Idaho. So I kind of put all that on hold and decided to just to hold off. I didn't want to, invest in a property, then move, across the country and have this property at long distance and not know what to do with it. So I waited. We moved to Idaho in 2015, and about a year later, I got back involved, learning and getting motivated, I guess. And we bought our first property in 2017. We bought a fourplex out here in this area, local. Um, I knew early on that I wanted to go, multifamily or multiple doors because for me, I saw the risk of a single family being that, if that house is vacant, I've got to cover the mortgage. That's not an expense I wanted to deal with. And if there's, something major needs to be done, like replace the carpets or the furnace or whatever it may be, then that pretty much wipes out the whole years of income anyway. So I was like, there's no point in that. My whole point when I started investing in real estate was the cash flow. I know there's always that upside depreciation possibility, but also there's, as we've seen, fluctuations going back to like in the 2008 crash. There's no guarantee that there's going to be that equity upside at the point you're ready to get out of it. So, I was like, if there's equity, great, but I care about the cash flow. That was my goal from day one investing. I need to have cash flow. Um, so I saw the scalability of having multiple doors to be able to do that much faster and get better cash flow. So about that fourplex in 2017, and then about a year and a half later, got a couple more fourplexes, this time out of state. And then even at that point, I kind of realized well, first of all, more people were getting involved. There's a lot more competition now. Near the end of 2018 and 2019, I was not as easily finding great deals or getting access to great deals. I was usually getting outbid on everything I'd offer on. And I was not willing to just overpay and go way above to the point where it didn't make cash flow. So I started looking into other options and kind of got sort of, I guess, pulled into commercial real estate on accident, I guess. It wasn't intentional. I didn't say I'm going to jump to this point now, but these opportunities came up, and I got involved with some development projects initially, and then just continuing to search for more multifamily deals. I was trying to get more into the apartment syndication, as most people are familiar with when you think of commercial real estate. But for me, my personal criteria and goals for the returns from the cash flow and the equity or the overall ROI, I was just not seeing it in the multifamily, the commercial apartment buildings. I know there's lots of people that still are syndicating these deals, and for them they're good deals, but for me they weren't great deals. So I did not just want to settle and just say this is good enough and take it. I was like, I like to hold off and be more precise and specific on the deals I invest in. And so I just kept searching and waiting and hoping for something better. And lo and behold, one day I heard on a podcast somebody talking about RV campgrounds as an investment option, something that I myself had never heard of before that point. And so that really got me interested in what that looks like. Especially being again where I'm at, close to Yellowstone. It's a big camping area. Most of my neighbors have RVs, and so I saw this as maybe an untapped niche that there could be some possibilities there. So I started investigating more, going to different webinars and meetups with people in that space, and just networking to learn more. And initially just get my foot in the door and maybe be a boots on the ground for someone that wants to buy in this area. And then I'm just happen to meet the right people that were looking to expand and grow and do more. They just closed on their first property, and so I came along, and it was like a perfect fit for all around for me and for them to get involved with Happy Camper Capital. And that's kind of how I got involved initially. coming on board to help raise capital, but now I'm a full-fledged partner in the company. And yeah, we purchase RV resorts, campgrounds, and marinas across the country. These are not RV parks, as most people would probably what comes to mind, you think of RVs, you're going to think of like these mobile home parks, basically, but that's not what these are. These are like vacation resorts, so like basically short-term rental, vacation properties where people come, have a great time, and they go back home. So people are not living here long term. You might get some seasonal campers that stay for, like the full summer or winter or something. You get those like snowbirds that kind of travel back and forth and all that. Um, but yeah, for the most part, people are not living there year round, so you don't have to deal with evictions and, more importantly, eviction moratoriums. If you had to deal with that during COVID, like I did with some of my apartments, and um, and we just are here to create great experiences for people to come and just to enjoy their time. And we actually want our investors to go there, the properties as well, and go there and have fun and hang out and enjoy it, create some memories, and that's kind of what we do. And these properties, being that they are, vacation resort properties, if you want to compare it, it's kind of like a short-term rental at a multifamily scale. So, if you're comparing a single family short-term rental versus a single family long-term rental, that short-term rental is typically going to produce much higher income than the long-term rental. And that's basically what we're doing here. These are short-term rentals with hundreds of short-term rentals on a single property, and so they produce great income, provide great returns back to our investors, and also great equity upsides. So if we're going to compare apples to apples, we'll say, how's it compared to multifamily? Well, at least for most of the multifamily deals I've seen in the last couple of years, they've been coming bit down over the last year or so as far as their overall returns and the cash flows, but they're typically are operating about a 6%, 6 to 8% pref, we'll say, as far as your cash flow is going to be, which usually is very little of that in the first couple of years. You maybe get some at the back end, but your bigger return comes from when they sell the property after maybe 5 years, where and then you're maybe at most doubling your investment. So basically, you're getting a 2x multiple after about a 5-year hold. With the RV campgrounds, we're I'd say overall maybe about double those numbers. We're typically going to get a higher cash flow. We average or target between, let's say, a 12 to 15% cash on cash, and that is pays out day one. So there's no hold period or wait period while we're doing some capex stuff, which we do capex. We still are doing value add. We're finding ways to improve these properties, create higher income and higher value at the end. But they are producing cash flow day one, which would pay out immediately, and so you're getting a much higher cash flow from the start, and overall between the cash flow and the equity, you're getting about a 2.5 to 3x multiple over that same 5-year hold period. And you guess the added benefit, you can actually go there and have fun, right? We want you go there and hang out with your friends and family and create memories. I tell people you're probably if you're invested in a multifamily, you're probably not going to live there, and you're not going to go, have a barbecue in the parking lot with your friends. So, it gives you a very unique experience as an investor as compared to anything else.
Absolutely. And that's I mean, that's a heck of a journey for you, right? From, growing up in, you said it was Omaha, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, from Omaha, and then obviously a lot of your circumstances change. Getting there to Idaho, and the whole CPA thing, and then also kind of identifying that there's some sort of special niche here as well. And I know that you mentioned a lot of the cash on cash returns, but to you, it seems like with real estate you could do anything. You could do construction, development, you could flip homes. What speaks to you about RVs out of any sort of niche in the real estate space? What makes RVs unique?
Yeah, so it's something that maybe I guess has changed since I've been involved with it myself and gotten deeper into it. Initially, of course, what drew me to it was the returns. Yeah, I was definitely looking for that cash flow. Yeah, I was seeking, financial independence, as I think most people are, and I definitely see real estate as the shortcut to financial independence. But so that's what drew me to it initially. But as I've learned more about it and become more familiar with all the ins and outs about it, there's a few things that stand out to me that definitely for me personally, I guess resonate more with my personal beliefs and morals. So um, with we'll say multifamily as an example, just because that's kind of more what's known by everybody. As we mentioned before, you deal with evictions at times, and sometimes it's because they're a bad person that you just need to get rid of. But some cases it's just somebody going through a bad experience. They've got laid off their job, or had a death, something happened that they can't afford to pay the rent for a time, and unfortunately there's not really much you can do to help them. If they get maybe turned away from some public services or whatever. But you get to the point where you have to evict them, and then in some cases, again, somebody may not necessarily deserve to be evicted, but it's kind of that you have to follow the rules, and they don't pay the rent, you got to get rid of them. And then in other cases, you got um, where you're typically trying to do a value add on a property, you want to raise the rents, you want to increase the income on the property to make it more valuable and produce higher returns. So you're now putting people in a circumstance where they have been great renters for a long time, but maybe now they can't afford to pay that higher rent. They're forced to either cut their budget elsewhere, cut their food budget or whatever it may be to afford the rent to stay there, or forced to go find someplace else cheaper they can afford, which may not be as nice of a property. And so you're kind of putting that burden on people to have to make those kinds of decisions. Whereas our campgrounds, we're not dealing with those kind of aspects. Again, people aren't living here, so we typically not have to evict anybody. And if I guess the other benefit is if somebody does need to be removed, like they outstay their welcome or causing problems, we just can simply call the police and have them escorted off for trespassing, really. So it's not like a big drawn out process to courts. And again, we're not putting them on the street. They're they have a home to go back to, hopefully.
Mm.
And then so from the other side, for raising rents, so with these camping spaces, yeah, we're still going to probably raise the rents on them. That's expected. Most of the properties we purchased have been mom and pop owned and maybe have not even raised rents in 50 years or something. So there could be possibility to increase the rent significantly, but you're not, again, going back to that the lifestyle. You're not making people forced to choose between food or rent. They don't live here, so if they don't want to pay the higher cost to come and camp there for a weekend or whatever, they just maybe go for a different property that maybe is in their price range. Um, but for most cases, we're not, again, not like we're talking about the hundreds of dollars per month difference. People are coming to stay for a weekend or a week, so maybe like overall, a $20 per night difference is not going to be a huge factor as far as
Mm.
if they're going to come stay or not. So they're kind of some of the aspects I really enjoy a lot that makes me, I guess, have a clearer conscience and feel good about what I'm investing in, what we're doing, to not, feel, I guess, guilty or anything for causing that possible pain or heartache to people to have to make those other lifestyle decisions.
Absolutely. Definitely well said there. And, one statistic I had seen earlier, it says the U.S. camping industry is projected to grow $12.6 billion by the end of 2027. So it sounds like within the next 5 years or so, we're going to continue seeing this exponential growth in the RV industry. And I'm curious as well. One thing I noticed, at least just from reading a bit online, it seems like out of any type of demographic, it seems like a lot of millennials in particular are
Mhm.
kind of adopting this RV kind of lifestyle. Could you maybe describe, why you think that is, that this sort of investment manner or is attractive to millennials?
Sure, definitely. So I don't know if I have I'd say the exact right answer, but from my I guess thinking process, there's two factors that affect that a lot. And backing this up, first of all, we'll say that this is not something new that popped up out of nowhere. The RV campgrounds and RV industry has been around for decades, right? Pretty much since they've been you know vans and people go traveling and camping. So it's not something brand new popped up. And to what you're saying, the growth, we definitely are seeing that growth ourselves, and we know that, which is kind of why this niche is exploding right now. If you want to compare it to, say, um, self storage or mobile home parks like 5 years ago when they weren't really that common, and then all of a sudden kind of exploded on the scene. That's kind of what's happening here. So we're very early adopters in this space that is about to explode, and you'll see a lot more people doing them. But as far as the millennials, yeah, they are the current largest demographic of new RV purchasers. And my thought on this is twofold, and it kind of relates back to COVID in a way, for both reasons, I guess. So one, you get people that are now we're have the option to work from home, or work remotely. So if in most cases, millennials, either they don't have a family or a very small family, young kids maybe, so they now have the option. Okay, if we're not tied down to a certain city, I don't have to be here to work. We can travel and live anywhere. It's like, well, why not do that? Take life on the road. Change locations every week or month, however often you want, and live someplace new while you work from your RV or the campground. In general. So that's one option that people were definitely taking advantage of and just seeing the country, I think. And then two is during that COVID time, as we've seen, of course, the housing market like went crazy, and people were way overpaying and overbidding on houses, and made it almost impossible to buy a house for most just standard home buyers. And so if you're getting outbid on every single house you try to buy, and you don't obviously want to put yourself in a situation where you have like now a giant mortgage more than you wanted to pay just to get a house. It's like, well, next best option is to get an RV where you can more easily buy one, and then again go back to that, have that freedom to travel and not have to be restricted to, this is where you live, this is where you're at. I can call Omaha or Miami or New York home every single month if I want to, and change locations, and have fun seeing where I want to maybe live permanently. Go test out, a different market, every month, and see where do I actually want to live permanently at some point and settled in. So I think that gave people a lot of freedom just to have those options, and take advantage of that. And of course, we see like social media, like the Instagram and TikTok, all that stuff. The whole RV life and van life. A lot of people were following that and seeing that looked fun and enjoyable, I guess, and wanted that freedom. So that kind of gave more motivation to take that route.
Absolutely. And it's interesting as well, is that a lot of, maybe the young professionals who are also kind of, doing real estate, this would kind of speak to them as well, kind of being part of this RV lifestyle, right? Especially if, you're outdoorsy, you maybe like going to state parks, like going to national parks, you like hiking, Yellowstone, whatever it is, it's pretty cool. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm curious as well, I'm not sure if this is, I guess, an easy question to answer, but how would you say maybe have gas prices and inflation affected this business at all?
Yeah, well, it's definitely a question that comes up from a lot of people, and it's I think a topic worth mentioning. So so honestly, we have not seen much of a change, at least for us. Yeah, I think overall, as we get more into, if we actually hit a full on recession, I think it's actually going to see an increase in the campground users. So again, go back to, I guess, two factors that affect this. So gas prices. Yeah, so if you're, RVs are not known as very efficient vehicles, or initially even a truck towing like a fifth wheel, right? That's going to consume a lot of gas. So you're probably not going to be taking cross country trips. You're not going to go from Arizona to Tennessee to go camping. So what we purchase with the campgrounds we buy, the resorts, are typically within a 2 or maximum 3 hour drive of a major metropolitan area. So yeah, you might not take a cross country trip, but you still want to go have fun, go camping. Especially if you own an RV or camper, you don't want to just sit in your driveway. So most people are willing to drive a couple hours to go have fun and go out every weekend or month or whatever it may be. So we have our properties strategically purchased within that short driving distance where most people are willing to drive and get out and have fun. And part of that also, people are not just camping. We put on, these campgrounds have other amenities or events going on that will draw people there. There could be like a water park feature or a concert event or different things that people are coming not just for camping. So those are those that will draw them also to come that couple hours drive. On the other side of it, I guess there's two sides of this as well. So the recession, how it's going to affect people. So you got we'll say the higher end folks that are typically the ones that are buying the nicer RVs and campers, right? These are not cheap or necessity items. These are essentially luxury toys, right? Nobody needs an RV or a camper, but if you can afford it, you buy it because you want to, right? So people that are typically going to be higher income earners to afford those luxury items are not going to be as affected by recession usually, right? They're not going to be at risk of losing their job probably, and probably not cutting back too much on their lifestyle budget. They may not take a trip to Disney World maybe, but they'll still, again, if you already have the camper, let's go use it. Let's go camping. Let's go to have fun. And then you got the other side of maybe the we'll say the lower income earners, that still have an RV or just want to go camping anyway. Our properties are typically going to have cabins or other glamping or short-term rental options, or even just say a standard dry tent camping. People want to go just hang out in a tent. These properties again are going to attract them there because there's other stuff to do more than just camping. So you got the the lower income earners that maybe won't want to go afford a trip to Disney World or even to wherever it may be during a recession, but they still want to go have fun. So everybody's by now is familiar with the term staycation, right? So you're going to say, okay, well, let's not go to Texas from Idaho or something, but you know what? Let's drive, go camping, and go hang out this place, and go enjoy time on the lake and go boating or whatever it may be. So you're gonna get the two aspects of that. People that are still not going to spend a lot of money on a big vacation, but they'll still, do something close by and near home. So overall, I don't think the gas prices or the recession is going to have much of a negative effect overall on the campground industry.
Absolutely. And, like we spoke about it, it's just such a neat, I guess it's just a neat time to see this, right? I guess you're kind of seeing at least the past few, how the past few years have gone, people being indoors, people wanting to be out. And, of course, having that investment aspect in it too. It's a neat time I'm sure, to be part of this business.
Yeah, definitely. It's exciting to see. First of all, like when I first got involved, it was still really unknown by most people. And then I started talking about it more in different meetup events I go to and different podcasts, and so people started becoming more familiar with it. And then there are other people that are getting into this space now, as we'll say this, as an investment level. Traditionally, these campgrounds have been always mom and pop owned, right? So you're gonna have an individual or family that buys them, and then they sell them to another individual or family that wants to keep maintaining it and going forward. So it's definitely become more institutionalized in the last few years, and there are more groups like ours that are getting into the space or want to get into the space to kind of take advantage of those opportunities to get these mom and pop properties that have always been ran very simple to keep it easy for them to run, but have not really met their efficiency level if you can do with the proper systems and staffing and resources to make that happen. So there's a huge potential in these properties to really make a lot of income overall. So you're definitely going to see a lot more of the institutional level investors getting involved in these properties in the very near future.
Absolutely. Yeah. I would imagine if the opportunity is there, it sounds like the institutional money would follow suit, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely, Don. Well, is there anything that you haven't said for us you'd really just like to hit home?
Well, I would definitely want to let people know that you can obviously visit our website at happycampercapital.com to learn more. We have opportunities for both accredited and non-accredited investors. So no matter what your investment level or experience is, we have lots of people that are very first-time investors that invest with us as well. Because they, again, people like myself, like when I was first starting out, if I would have found something like these types of returns, I probably would have just went straight there and did that because it would have been easier than trying to do it all on my own. Um, but at the time I did not have those resources or the knowledge of where to go or how to do anything, and I had to learn a lot on my own. But we cater to a lot of people at various experience levels. Whether it be a brand new V investor or very experienced investor, we can cater to both. And I still think overall, somebody's looking for higher cash flow and higher returns. It's gonna be very difficult to find that elsewhere, besides something that you do on your own as an individual.
Absolutely, Don. Well said. And it's an interesting point you made about, had you had this when you first started out, it would have been a nice resource to you. So it's really neat that you guys can provide that service.
Yeah, definitely. I myself, just from my own experience and the blessings I've received, I'm more than happy to share this with other people, and because I know there's people just like myself, a few years ago that don't have a lot of resources, but you want to invest, you want to change your future, so you want to get involved in real estate, but um, there's an easier way to do that than going through those learning experiences, I guess, and having to deal with evictions and destroyed properties and all that stuff. You can leave all that aside, be completely passive, invest your in something like this, and just get to that point where you're financially free and just enjoy your life, and use that passive income to help sustain your lifestyle going forward, and not to deal with those types of headaches.
Absolutely. I guess taking the headaches out of it and still getting the same returns in the process, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely, Don. Well, it's been a pleasure getting to speak to you tonight. A bit about your background, kind of getting into the industry services y'all offer, the uniqueness of RVs compared to maybe different facets of the real estate business. And you've done a great job breaking it down for us tonight. So, greatly appreciate you coming on tonight, Don.
Yeah, thanks. It's been my pleasure for sure. Thanks for inviting me.
All right. We'll have your link to your contact information, happycapitalcapital.com. We'll have your email address, everything in the show notes, and we'll talk to y'all next time.